Have you ever noticed how money seems to gravitate towards those ready to receive it, while slipping through the fingers of those who desperately clutch at it? There's an unseen force at play, a silent conductor of financial flow. What I'm about to share will completely shift your perspective, unlocking a world of abundance that defies conventional wisdom. It's not magic, it's not luck, and it's definitely not just about grinding yourself to the bone. It's something else entirely. And by changing that something else, opportunities materialize, phones ring, and previously elusive possibilities suddenly appear. I learned this firsthand. Wealth doesn't begin in your wallet, it starts within. As long as I saw myself as just another struggling soul, I attracted situations that confirmed that self-image. But the moment I revamped my internal financial identity, the external world rearranged itself like obedient puzzle pieces. Back then, as a Toronto firefighter, I silently repeated limiting beliefs: money's tight, it takes blood, sweat, and tears, this isn't for me, each phrase a self-fulfilling prophecy hardwired into my nervous system. It was a predictable cycle: pay one bill, another crisis emerged. Then, I made a decisive shift. I stopped fighting reality and started confronting my beliefs. I grabbed pen and paper and wrote down everything I believed about money, wealth, pricing, charging, and deservingness. It hurt. Because there, laid bare, was the blueprint of my self-imposed limitations. Next, I rewrote each sentence as if I were already managing a substantial fortune. Money only comes with suffering became, money responds to direction, clarity, and the value I deliver. I can't sell, transformed into, I teach people to acquire what enhances their lives. I didn't wait to believe before acting, I acted until my body learned to believe. The first sign wasn't a windfall, it was the calm confidence making a phone call I'd previously procrastinated on for weeks. I remember leaving the firehouse, determined to launch a cleaning service. The phone felt heavy as lead in my hand. My voice trembled on that first call. I longed for the familiar safety net of my old job. But I held firm to my new identity, the efficient, friendly problem solver. Within days, I had my first clients. By the end of the year, that small business had generated around $100,000. It wasn't luck, it was alignment. I didn't have new muscles, but a new paradigm. Honestly ask yourself, does your schedule and body language reflect someone who manages abundance? Or are you still in firefighting mode, constantly putting out fires? Effective reprogramming happens on 3 levels. First, the inventory. Write down your automatic negative thoughts: nobody pays that, I'm going to lose the client, I can't save. No judgment, just observation. Second, replace this negative self-talk with practical, not fantastical, language. Instead of, I'll be rich, I wrote, I present clear solutions, charge with confidence, and forge mutually beneficial agreements. Instead of visualizing money falling from the sky, I envisioned myself making calls, scheduling meetings, presenting, negotiating, delivering. I felt the calm in my voice, the rhythm of my speech, my posture, the silence after quoting a price. Posture is programming. The third level is environment. Remove scarcity triggers and install order triggers. An organized wallet, a clear desk, a simple, updated spreadsheet, easy access to important contacts. Your environment doesn't motivate, it instructs your brain about who you are. I know the objections. I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have the education. I didn't either. Time is created by focusing on priorities, one revenue-generating action daily before checking social media. Money multiplies when you stop chasing it and treat it as an ally. I set a minimum value per task and stuck to it, avoiding undervaluing my work out of anxiety. Formal education helps, but it's not the only path. I studied people, patterns, language, perceived value. I asked questions most avoid. What problem do I solve so clearly that people feel uncomfortable saying no? What in my process communicates tension, and how can I remove it today? Where am I letting money slip away through fear of rejection? These questions realign your vibration because they force you to examine where scarcity hides. There was a day I almost gave up. A low bank balance, a late payment, and that familiar urge to take anything to make ends meet. Instead, I sat, centered my breath, and wrote 10 times, I operate with serenity and profit, I charge fairly, I deliver as promised. I called a client who'd been making excuses to delay payment. I listened carefully, restated their goal in my own words, offered a clear solution, and remained silent. That sustained, unnervous silence was my greatest training. They said, let's do it. I felt relief and self-respect. That contract opened doors, not because of the money, but because it solidified my identity as someone who doesn't compromise their dignity. Notice, most people want money, but their bodies reject situations that bring it. They avoid direct conversations, hesitate to discuss pricing, postpone proposals, respond late, and don't ask satisfied clients for referrals. Self-image is the software driving these choices. I had to train myself to embrace productive discomfort, the tension before an important call, the silence after quoting a price, patiently waiting for a thoughtful yes instead of forcing a discounted yes. This training alters your frequency, increasing your prosperity tolerance. You can handle bigger relationships, responsibilities, and values without self-sabotage. What if I lose the client? If they only buy when you undervalue yourself, you're already losing yourself. What if they think it's too expensive? Expensive compared to what? How much does it cost them to continue without your solution? These questions shift you from beggar to partner. I implemented small, almost imperceptible rituals reinforcing my new identity. Upon waking, I chose one revenue-generating task and completed it before any distractions. Then, I reviewed my processes. Who will I help today? How will I approach them? When will I invoice? What will I deliver? At night, I recorded 3 pieces of progress, even small ones, to teach my brain, it's working. And at least once a day, I practiced the receiving posture, standing tall, shoulders back, hands relaxed, breathing calmly, like someone receiving good news. It seems simple, but the body is the stage where the mind rehearses the future. When the body learns, the mind follows. Close your eyes for a moment and recall the last time you said, I'm not good at this. Replace it with, I'm mastering this, and feel the shift in your chest, jaw, and shoulders. This micro-change, repeated often, separates those who stall from those who progress. That's how I went from insecure employee to purposeful entrepreneur. And that's how, without a degree or the right connections, I built a business that generated roughly $100,000 in 12 months. Not through a magic shortcut, but by aligning belief, emotion, and action, and maintaining that alignment even on days when nothing seemed to happen. You're not fixing finances, you're upgrading your financial operating system. Money is a lagging indicator of your identity. When your identity adjusts, the indicator has no choice but to follow. I learned that without structure, money becomes a test, not a blessing. Because if you don't know how to maintain, protect, and multiply it, everything that comes in will go out. Worse, it will exit through the same invisible holes fueled by untreated old beliefs. Money reflects your system, not your luck. And every system has pillars. Mine were so simple anyone could apply them, even on a low income. It's not about how much comes in, it's how you handle what you already have. The first step is clarity on income and expenses. I don't mean vague estimations. Create a detailed map where each value has a name and destination. I'd sit with a blank sheet and write, line by line, how much came in that month, where it came from, and where it went. Nothing was left uncategorized. For each expense, I'd ask, is this a necessity, security, growth, or vanity? If it wasn't one of the first 3, I'd cut it or freeze it. Not as punishment, but as a declaration of who I wanted to become. Because if money has no destination, it becomes a distraction. Next, I established a reserve to protect my decisions. I didn't start with much. It was small, but consistent. Every time I received payment, I set aside a portion, however small, before paying any bills. Because if you only save what's left, you'll never save anything. What's left already has an owner, impulse. This reserve wasn't for investment, it was to shield my mind. Because when you have a financial reserve, you think better, negotiate better, and say no more confidently. The lack of this reserve had made me accept disrespectful clients, deliver more than agreed, and spend sleepless nights. Its presence gave me firmness. As I expanded, I needed to separate real growth from mere euphoria. Before, any income increase became a treat, a new phone, a move. Now, I'd ask, does this increase my capacity to generate more value, or does it just feed an emotional void? Because many financial decisions are attempts to fix self-esteem through consumption. And self-esteem isn't bought, it's built. I invested in tools that made me more productive, in specific training to deliver better results, and in people who complemented me. Growth requires discernment. I also learned that planned generosity isn't a luxury, it's emotional intelligence. When you share intentionally, you reinforce the idea that there's more than enough. I chose a small, consistent percentage to support causes aligned with my values. It wasn't charity, it was sowing seeds. It helped keep my heart open and my mind free from fear. Because the fear of running out makes you cling to what you have and forget that the flow only continues if you let go. There was a crucial moment when everything was tested. A contract representing half my income was unexpectedly cancelled. I could have panicked. But I didn't. I looked at my system, saw the reserve I'd built, reviewed my contacts, sent out 3 proposals, and secured 2 new contracts in less than a week. I only managed this because fear didn't take control. And fear didn't take control because the system was solid. Have you ever been paralyzed when an income source disappeared? This doesn't happen when you have emotional and financial organization. Stability begins long before your bank balance. And when I say maintain money, it's not about hoarding. It's about having criteria. So before any purchase, I ask 3 questions. Does this solve a real problem? Does it have ongoing utility? Does it contribute to what I'm building? If 2 answers are no, I postpone it. And almost always, by the next day, the desire has passed. Thus, I don't trade progress for impulse. And each time I do this, I reinforce my identity as someone who knows what they are doing. The biggest mistake is earning more and thinking you can do anything. People increase their lifestyle before solidifying their structure. They buy cars, move to nicer neighborhoods, take out loans for vacations. But they forget their new financial reality is still fragile. I learned to wait for 3 stable cycles before upgrading my lifestyle. This gave me peace. Because those who climb slowly, climb steadily. And those who climb steadily, don't fall easily. You can start now, even without much. Grab a piece of paper and write, how much came in last month? List all expenses. Categorize them. See what can be paused, reviewed, or renegotiated. Choose a symbolic amount to save. It can be small, the gesture is what matters. Decide where to invest for growth, and where to contribute to the world. With these simple steps, you communicate to the universe, I know how to manage, you can send more. Money doesn't change who you are. It exposes and amplifies. If you're disorganized, it accelerates chaos. If you're conscious, it accelerates freedom. Therefore, never just wish for more money. Wish to become someone who knows exactly what to do when it arrives. Because when you prove you know how to manage, it starts returning frequently. And then, abundance becomes a state, not an exception. When I say maintaining your financial identity is more important than getting rich quick, I'm not exaggerating. What builds genuine wealth isn't the speed at which money enters, but the consistency with which it remains and works for you. It's common for someone to have a sudden increase in income and, shortly after, return to the same point, or worse. This happens because the internal structure doesn't keep pace with the new level. You continue thinking, feeling, and deciding like someone living in scarcity, even when your bank account says otherwise. And this is more common than it seems. For money to become a natural consequence of your new way of being, you need to build daily habits that sustain this new identity. One of the first I adopted was starting the day with clarity about which action, that day, would move me closer to what I want to live. And that action needs to be related to generating value. If you start your day solving other people's problems, putting out fires, and saying yes to everything, you're giving up your path to build someone else's. Every day, before checking messages or responding to anything, I ask myself, what action today creates the most impact and the best return? Only then did I give attention to the rest. Another fundamental point is to maintain an environment that reminds you of who you're becoming. This isn't just metaphorical, it's literal. The things around you influence your mind. When I looked at my desk and saw clutter, papers, open bills, unfinished projects, it told me my life was out of control. And a mind that feels disorganized doesn't create, doesn't negotiate well, and doesn't make good decisions. So I organized my physical and digital spaces simply, only what's necessary, everything in its place, and emotional clutter out of sight. The energy shifts. The focus shifts. You start operating with more elegance and less effort. I also started recording, at the end of each day, 3 pieces of evidence that I was evolving. This could be a satisfied client, a proposal sent, a habit maintained, a limit respected. Small daily victories that serve as anchors. This strengthens your inner confidence and teaches your mind that it's working. Because what knocks most people down isn't failure, it's the feeling that nothing is changing. And this happens because they don't measure what they are building. If you don't measure, you forget. If you forget, you repeat old patterns. And if you repeat, you return to the starting point. To maintain my composure in difficult conversations, I created a simple ritual before each important meeting. I closed my eyes for a minute, took a deep breath, and remembered 3 reasons why my work generates real transformation. Then I repeated a phrase to myself: I am someone who delivers value, charges with clarity, and honors agreements. This phrase became the foundation of my tone, posture, and silence after stating the price. When you sustain silence, you show you are whole. Those who don't sustain silence justify, embellish, beg. And when you beg, you surrender your authority. There's an invisible trap that knocks many down: constant comparison with others. You look at those who seem to be earning more, living better, and feel you're behind. But what you don't see is behind the scenes. Nobody posts the debts, the stress, the bad deals, the low prices from desperation. When I realized this, I unplugged for a week. No social media, no distractions. I returned to myself, to my numbers, to my goals. And there, I reconnected with my path. Money doesn't respect anxiety. It respects direction. And direction requires silence from time to time. Another habit that protects me is never making important decisions on tired days. When I'm exhausted, I don't negotiate, don't change prices, don't close contracts. Because fatigue distorts the perception of value. And at those times, tend to give too much, reduce too much, and regret it later. So when my body asks for rest, I rest. It's not a luxury, it's intelligence. A rested mind sees opportunities that an exhausted mind ignores. And when you learn to rest without guilt, you become more productive in less time. The most important point is to understand that maintaining your firm identity doesn't depend on how much you have, but how you act with what you have. I've seen people with little money behaving like true investors, analyzing, choosing, planning. And I've seen people with a lot of money living as if they'll go broke tomorrow, buying on impulse, avoiding numbers, hiding behind appearances. What makes the difference isn't the bank account, it's consciousness. You can start now. Organize your space. Choose a value-generating action before noon. Record 3 advancements at the end of the day. Breathe before important conversations. Review your promises and fulfill each one with excellence. And above all, stop looking sideways and start looking inward. The next level of your financial life isn't in luck, the market, or others. It's in sustaining the version of yourself who already knows what to do with what they have. When this version becomes your new normal, money stops testing you, and starts obeying you. Continue at this frequency of clarity, presence, and conscious decision-making, because this sustains the next leaps you want to experience. Now, click on the next video that's appearing on the screen. It's the next step to climb another rung on your ladder of evolution and become a little better than you are now. Thank you very much for joining me here, and I'll see you in the next video.